is Steve, and this is A Voice Crying in the Wilderness. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the year 2022. And this is A Voice Crying in the Wilderness. I heard my friend James Carter this morning running to read, talking about getting back into the Old Testament and reading Genesis. And I thought that that's something that I might want to start doing. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. But before I do that, I want to give you, I want to maybe just interest you and take a look at my new Bible. And it's called the NLT Illustrated Study Bible. Now, why am I introducing this Bible to you? Well, because it's an interesting Bible. It's got a lot of study notes. It's got a lot of graphics. This is the box that it comes in. So it's not one of those plain Bibles, but it's a very interesting Bible. So it actually looks like this. It's a big fat Bible here. As you see, when you open it up, it's got all sorts of pictures in it. Just see if you can take a look at that. Let's go to the first part of Genesis, and okay, it's got. Let's just take a quick good look here. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, this is the beginning of Genesis, and as you can see here, this is the beginning of time. It's got creation, it's got how it was formed, about all of the animals. Here it is. It doesn't have just the verses. It actually has a lot of study notes. So while you're reading the verses, you actually get to find out what each verse means. So that's kind of what I'm going to just kind of give you like a little bit of example. So I'm not going to really go into the entire, all of Genesis like at the beginning, but what I'm going to try to do here, okay, here's something on Adam and Eve in here. Look. See? This talks about creation, about the first man and first woman. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read 13 through 20. And then I'm going to kind of read a little bit of the study notes and see what it says right here. Okay, here is verse 13, 1 through 7. It says, this is what it's about. This story is set in conflict amidst God's blessings. In the opening verses, Abram returns to a place where he has built an altar. Previous events are emphasized as Abram's return to the land is described, 13:3 through 4. Abraham renewed his worship and again proclaimed the Lord's name. So it just gives you a lot of different, it's got a lot of different study notes. So as you go through the Genesis 13, on the bottom, it's got a lot of notes to what each of the verses mean. And so I'm just going to give you a kind of example. So I'm going to start on Genesis 13, and then I'll try to go through all the study notes as if I can. Okay, Genesis 13. So Abraham left Egypt and traveled north into Negev, along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages toward Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the same place where Abraham had built the altar, and he worshipped the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, had also become very wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. At the time, Canaanites and Perizzites were also living on the land. Finally, Abram said to Lot, let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left. Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abraham, "Look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving you all this land as far as you can see to you and your descendants as a permanent possession, and I will give you so many descendants like that of the dust of the earth they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you." So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and set up near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. There he built altar to the Lord. Okay, so that's 13. On the bottom here, it's got you got all these study notes, so we can actually go through these, and it tells you what it means. So in 13, 1 through 7, I'm going to repeat this again. This story is set in a conflict amidst God's blessings. In the opening verses, Abram returns to a place where he had built an altar. Previous events are emphasized as Abram's return to the land is described. 13:3 through 4. Abram renewed his worship and again proclaimed the Lord's name. 13 through 2. Abram already had powerful resources. His Egyptian sojourn augmented his wealth and power. 13:5 through 7. Lot also has wealthy with flocks and herds. Tents figure predominantly in Lot's story, 13 through 12. The Canaanites and Perizzites um, judge held the well-watered land. The quarrel between Abraham's and Lot's herdsmen left Abraham more vulnerable to attack. 13, 8 through 13. Abraham, to whom the land was promised, might have told Lot to find his own place. Abram's generosity was an act of faith. He knew that even if he gave the whole land away, God would still give it to him and his descendants. Abram did not have cling to things, whereas Lot's choices were self-seeking. So that kind of gives you a little bit of emphasis on what those particular verses mean in Genesis 13. And okay, then it gives you a note on Genesis 13:8. This is what this one means. Abram was concerned that there would be no conflict between them as they were close relatives. Moses later reproved Israel over the incident in the wilderness at Meribah and instructed them on exercising faith in such situations. Meribah thereafter became a watchword for testing and striving with the Lord in unbelief. Then it says 13:10. What up? Okay, this is what 13 verses Genesis 13:10. This is what this particular verse means. What appealed to a Lot would be short-lived in the garden of the Lord. Adam and Eve succumbed to their cravings for what they saw. Israel was later enslaved in Egypt. Sodom and Gomorrah are reminders of putting intense desires ahead of obedience of God. Zoar was a small town in the plain to which Lot and his daughters later fled. It was previously called Bela. Now you remember the story. You remember the Adam and Eve story in Genesis, where she met Adam, and then they saw a tree, and then there was a snake, and that Eve saw an apple, and I guess it goes to the point where is that the that God had commanded her not to eat the apple because it wasn't good, but Eve was tempted and she took the apple anyway. She took a bite of it and then she gave it to Adam. And I guess somehow the snake had deceived them, and she decided to take a bite of the apple even after God commanded her not to do so. So you remember how the whole story is and how she disobeyed God. So you remember what happened in the Adam and Eve story. Okay, so here's verses. Okay, there's some study notes on 13, 11 through 18. The narrator makes numerous contrasts between Lot and Abram. Now in 13:11 it says Lot's choice was totally selfish, without concern for Abram or faith in the Lord. The region called the whole Jordan Valley, literally the circle of Jordan, is believed to have been near the south end of the Dead Sea based on descriptions on ancient records that locate cities of the plain. This area is now very desolate. 13:13. This verse means the implication is that Lot would not resist Sodom's influence because he too was living for himself. And then 13:14 through 17, it's getting to the end of 13 here. Abram could give Lot the choice land because he believed in God's promise. Abram waited for God to give him the land. Lot just took what he wanted. Okay. Then it's 13 through 18. Hebron was an Anakite city, originally called Kiriath, city of Arabia, located in forest highlands just north of Negev. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all settled there. And Sarah, Abraham, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah were buried there. Mamre was an immortate. Okay, so that's just kind of gives you kind of a summary of Genesis 13. So in this book, I don't think I'm going to read I don't think I'm going to get all the way to 20. So I'm just going to go through 13 today. And then when I do another video, we'll do more. But what it is this book you read Genesis 13 and you read all the verses, although I guess it's verse 1 through 1, Genesis 1 through 18. And when you get to the end, when you finish with 13, on the bottom of this book there are study notes that tell you what each of the verses that you read mean. And in here there's also photographs, there's maps, there's all sorts of stuff. So I'll go through a little bit of 14 here, and it says we're into Genesis 14. It's called Abram's encounter. Eventually, what I want to do is I want to try to go through much of this book. I'd like to go to the beginning, but I'm just kind of giving you a little short summary of this book, and maybe when I do another video, we'll do Genesis. We'll start at the very beginning, but I'm just giving you kind of a little preview here. I don't think I'm going to get through go all the way to 20. I'll just do 13. But let me give you a little summary of Genesis 14. The title here is called Abraham's Encounter with Kings. It's actually Genesis 14 verses 1 through 24. So there's a lot in here. It's a lot to read. So it's Abraham rescues us. So let's give you a little, I'll just maybe go 1 through 5, and then I'll go down to the study notes. So here we go. Genesis 14. About this time, war broke out in the region. King Abrapham of Babylonia, King Arioch of Elasar, King Kedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidam of Guam fought against King Bur of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomariah, King Shemai. Okay, this is all. This second group of kings joined forces in Siddim Valley, that is the valley of the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had been subject to King Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they had rebelled against him. Okay, now we're in verse 14:5. 1 year, Kedorlaomer and his allies arrived and defeated the Rephaites at Ashur-Tim at the Rites in Mount Seir, as far as Elpor at the edge of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to the Mizphat, now called Kadesh, and conquered all the territory of the Amalekites and also Amorites living in her. You got to excuse me here. This is really hard to read here. But that's just parts of the verses. So that's actually just verses 14, 1 through 5. And on the bottom here, it gives you kind of what all of the verses mean. And so here's an example. Uh, Here's an example of what 14, 1 through 2 means. Archaeology has not identified these kings, but similar names from antiquity corroborate the report's accuracy. The Mesopotamian kings were confederates under a suzerain, apparently Amraphel, who was mentioned first. 14.1, title apparently ruled a number of city-states. So this is just, and then it says in 14.1 through 16, in this skirmish typical of ancient politics, powerful kings formed a coalition to subjugate smaller vassal states. So here it's got a little map over here. Let me see what it says. This is the Siddim Valley over here. All right, let me just put this closer to the camera. This is Mesopotamia, near the Mediterranean Sea. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, it says Genesis 14, 1 through 24. The title is called Abram Saves Lot. So this is just going to tell you what the verses says. It's going to kind of tell you what you were reading. It says, when the kings in the Siddim Valley of the Dead Sea rebelled against King Chedorlaomer of Elam, Chedorlaomer and his Mesopotamian allies followed the kings' highway through Transjordan, the region east of the Jordan, then circled around from El Paran through En Misfat, conquering as they want. Okay, then they attacked the 5 Kenite kings near Belial. When Abram heard that Lot has been taken captive, he chased after Chedorlaomer attacked at Dan and pursued the fleeing armies north of Damascus to Hobaiah. After he recovered the captives and their goods. On his return, Abram stopped by the valley of Shavir near Salem and was blessed by Melchizedek. The location of the Siddim Valley is uncertain. It was probably at the south end of the Dead Sea. So this is a really it's a really good book. Some of it is a little bit difficult, even for me to read. Some of it is but what I like about this book is it's got all the verses here, and then on the bottom here it has a lot of study notes, and I guess it tells you all what the verses mean. It kind of gives you what you were reading, and there's a lot of maps, there's illustrations, and all types of pictures in here. So what I'm gonna do is that the next video that I do, I'm gonna actually, okay, here's some more stuff in this book. It's got actually charts and maps. So I don't know if you can see this. So this is the Old Testament. So I guess the best advice for me, if you really want to truly understand the Bible, I think it's always best to not. It's always better, at least for me. Start at the beginning. Start in Genesis. Go through the entire Genesis. Go all the way to Revelation, and just take your time. Go through each verse. I'll look at all the study notes. And it might help you try to understand what you're basically reading. So that's just what I was going to tell you. But in here, so let me see, in here, this got a timeline of biblical history. So I'm going to put this right up by the camera. Let me just put this up here. And this is going to take you through the timeline of the Bible. This is the Old Testament, by the way. This is the very beginning of the Bible. This is Genesis. This comes all the way from creation. Okay. All right. Here's some more. You can read that. You see this? All right. Okay, here's a little bit of Israel's history. It's got all the years in it. Okay, see if you can go through that. But it actually takes you through in here. It's actually got it's got the map all the way from Genesis, and it takes you all the way to Revelation. So if you want to go through, what my best suggestion, it says here, it says the Old Testament is God's word to his people through the ages. It describes the creation of the world and humanity, the origin of sin, and the beginning of God's plan of redemption. Through it, we gain a much clearer understanding of who God is and what he is doing and how we should live. The Old Testament stimulates our imaginations and arouses our emotions. It is made up of gripping stories of real events, stirring poems, embracing exhortations. It teaches us as God's plan, reveals as God's will, and helps us make decisions. Reading the OT is like looking into a mirror, for it reveals our soul. It plants a seed that grows, ultimately transforming our character. Jesus emphasized the importance of understanding the OT, Luke 24:25 through 27. And Paul was speaking primarily of the OT when he wrote it. All scripture is inspired by God and is useful to teach us what is true and to make us realize what is wrong in our lives. The OT provides us with a profound knowledge of God, ourselves, in the world. So as you can see here, see this picture in here? Gives you like a picture of Israel. See a picture of the mountains. You see the picture of the land. I don't know if you can see this here. All right. This is interesting pictures here. Okay, here's a map of the Old Testament. This is back in Mesopotamia. So you can see in there, it's got the Black Sea. This is the beginning. This is where the beginning of the Old Testament began. Let's take a good look at that map. So this is an interesting Bible to pick up. So if you're going to go through the Bible, this would probably be the one to get. And if you're gonna, this regardless of what Bible you have, always find if you can find one, get a good study Bible, get one that has pictures, illustrations, and study notes, so that when you read the Old Testament, you'll at least be able to understand what you're reading. So that's just kind of a little. This is just a little bit of a preview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it here, and in a future video, we'll actually start to go. I'm going to go through the beginning of Genesis, and we're going to go through the beginning of the Bible, but that's going to be in a future video. So maybe in the next few weeks I'll be back on, and I'll be here, and we'll be going through this particular Bible, and we'll be actually going through the first part of Genesis together, because I figure I actually wanted to go through the book of Revelations, because I feel it's more appropriate to where we are today. But I figure if we want to really understand the Bible, it's always better to go all the way back to the beginning, and then we'll just go through Genesis. So that's going to kind of what I'm going to do in the next few weeks. So right now we're just going to go through we just did Genesis 13 through 14. We'll have to do 20 in a future video, but I will want to wish everybody a good afternoon, and I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye-bye.